The clock on the kitchen wall showed 11:47 p.m. when everything changed. Alex had been sitting at his small dining table for hours, laptop screen glowing in the darkness of his tiny apartment. His eyes burned from staring at spreadsheets, but the deadline was tomorrow and he couldn't afford to mess this up. The apartment was quiet except for the usual city sounds drifting through the thin walls. Cars passing by on the street below, the occasional siren in the distance, and Mrs. Johnson from next door playing her television too loud again. Alex had gotten used to these sounds over the past 2 years. They had become the soundtrack to his new life. He stretched his arms above his head and cracked his knuckles, thinking about making another cup of coffee when he heard it. The soft click of a key turning in his front door lock, Alex froze. His hands stopped moving over the keyboard. His breathing became shallow. Nobody else had a key to his apartment. Well, nobody was supposed to have a key anyway. The door opened slowly, almost carefully, as if the person on the other side was being extra quiet on purpose. Alex turned his head toward the entrance, his heart starting to beat faster. In the dim light from his laptop screen, he could barely make out a figure stepping inside. It was her. Rachel stood in his doorway, closing the door behind her with the same gentle care she had always used for everything. She hadn't changed much in the 2 years since he'd last seen her. Her dark hair was a little shorter now, falling just past her shoulders instead of down her back like before. She wore a simple black coat that looked new, and her old brown boots that he remembered buying with her 3 years ago. She didn't say anything. Not hello, not sorry for barging in, not even his name. She just stood there looking at him with those deep brown eyes that used to read him like a book. Eyes that knew exactly how he looked when he was stressed about work, when he was happy about something small, when he was trying to hide being upset about something big. Alex opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. What do you say to someone who disappeared from your life 2 years ago and just walked back in like they never left? What do you say to the person you loved more than anyone else in the world, who left because loving each other wasn't enough to fix everything that was wrong? Rachel took a step forward into his living room. The floorboard under her foot made that familiar creaking sound that Alex had gotten used to ignoring. But tonight, with her standing there, it sounded as loud as thunder. She looked around the apartment slowly, taking in all the changes he had made since she left. The couch was in a different spot now, facing the window instead of the TV. He had painted the walls a light blue color instead of the white they used to be. There were new pictures on the refrigerator, mostly of his family and friends from work. None of them included her, but some things were exactly the same. The coffee mug she used to drink from every morning was still sitting in the dish drainer by the sink, clean and waiting. The small plant she had bought at the farmer's market was still alive on the windowsill, bigger now but still in the same clay pot. The book she had been reading before everything fell apart was still sitting on the shelf where she had left it, bookmark still marking her place on page 127. Alex realized he had been holding his breath. He forced himself to breathe normally, but his chest felt tight like someone was squeezing it. Seeing her again brought back everything at once. Not just the good memories, but all of it. The fights about money and future plans. The long silences during dinner. The way they both knew things were falling apart but kept pretending everything was fine. Rachel moved toward the kitchen, her footsteps soft on the worn carpet. She moved like someone who was trying not to wake a sleeping baby, careful and quiet. But there was something different about her tonight. Something in the way she held her shoulders, the way her hands hung at her sides. She looked tired in a way that went deeper than just needing sleep. She stopped in front of the window and looked out at the city lights. From where Alex sat, he could see her reflection in the glass, layered on top of the view of the parking lot and the street beyond. She looked like a ghost of herself. There, but not quite solid. The silence stretched between them like a rubber band being pulled tighter and tighter. Alex wanted to ask her why she was here, how she still had his key, what had happened to make her come back after all this time. But something about the way she stood there so still and quiet made him keep his questions to himself. Finally, Rachel turned away from the window and looked at him again. This time her expression was different, softer somehow, vulnerable in a way that reminded him of their early days together, when she would curl up next to him after a bad day at work and just need him to hold her without asking any questions. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out his spare key, the one he had given her when they moved in together. She held it up between them, and for a moment Alex thought she was going to give it back to him. Instead, she set it down on the counter next to the coffee maker and left her hand resting there, fingers spread flat against the cool surface. That's when Alex noticed her hands were shaking. Something was wrong. Really wrong. Rachel wasn't the type of person to just show up somewhere without calling first. She planned everything, always had backup plans for her backup plans. The fact that she was here, in his apartment at almost midnight without any explanation, meant something serious had happened. Alex slowly closed his laptop and stood up from the table. Rachel watched him move but didn't step away when he walked closer to her. When he was close enough to touch her, he stopped and waited. Whatever had brought her here tonight, whatever she needed from him, he would wait for her to show him instead of trying to guess. Rachel stood there for what felt like forever, just looking at Alex with those eyes that used to tell him everything. But tonight they were different. Tonight they held secrets he couldn't read, pain he couldn't understand, and something that looked almost like relief mixed with fear. Without saying a word, Rachel began to unbutton her black coat. Her fingers moved slowly, like each button required all her attention. Alex watched, confused and worried, as she carefully folded the coat and placed it on the back of his kitchen chair. The same chair where she used to sit every morning, drinking coffee and reading news on her phone. Next came her brown boots. She sat down on his couch and unlaced them one by one, setting them neatly by the door just like she always used to do. Alex remembered how that small habit used to annoy him sometimes when he was running late for work and would trip over her perfectly arranged shoes. Now, watching her do it again, he felt a strange mix of comfort and sadness. She wasn't moving like someone trying to be attractive or get his attention. This was something else entirely. It was like she was removing layers of protection, getting rid of anything that might create distance between them. Each piece of clothing she took off seemed to represent something bigger, something heavier that she was trying to let go of. Alex wanted to ask her what was happening, why she was here, what she needed from him. The questions were building up in his throat like water behind a dam, but something about the careful way she moved, the quiet concentration on her face, told him that talking right now would break whatever spell was keeping her calm. Rachel pulled off her sweater, revealing a simple white t-shirt underneath. Alex could see how thin she had gotten. Her collarbones were more pronounced than he remembered, and her arms looked smaller. She had always been slender, but this was different. This looked like someone who had forgotten to take care of herself for a while. She folded the sweater and added it to the growing pile of clothes on the chair. Then she looked at him again, and this time she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, though. It was the kind of smile people give when they're trying not to cry, when they're grateful for something but also heartbroken about needing it. That smile hit Alex like a punch to the chest. He recognized it. It was the same smile she had given him 3 years ago when her father was in the hospital and she couldn't afford the train ticket to go see him. The same smile from when she lost her job and was too proud to ask her family for help. The same smile she gave when the world was falling apart, but she didn't want to burden anyone else with her problems. Alex felt his breathing become shallow and quick. His heart was racing now, not from surprise anymore, but from the overwhelming realization that Rachel was in trouble, real trouble. And she had come to him because she didn't have anywhere else to go. He took a step toward her but stopped when she held up her hand. Not in a way that said stop or go away, but in a way that said, please, just let me do this my way. Let me get through this however I can. Rachel sat down on his couch and pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. It was a position Alex had seen her in countless times before, usually when she was processing something difficult or trying to make sense of confusing emotions. She would sit like that for hours sometimes, staring at nothing, working through problems in her head. But tonight was different. Tonight she wasn't trying to figure something out. Tonight she was trying to find a way to feel safe. Alex slowly walked over and sat down on the other end of the couch, leaving plenty of space between them. He didn't want to crowd her or make her feel trapped. He just wanted to be close enough to help if she needed him to. They sat there in silence for a long time. The only sounds were the familiar noises from outside and the quiet hum of the refrigerator. Alex found himself matching his breathing to hers, something he used to do when she had nightmares and he was trying to help her calm down. Finally, Rachel turned her head and looked at him. Her eyes were wet with tears that hadn't fallen yet, She opened her mouth as if she was going to say something, but then closed it again and shook her head. Whatever she needed to tell him, she wasn't ready yet. Instead, she reached out her hand toward him, palm up, fingers slightly curved. It was an invitation, a question, and a request for help all rolled into one small gesture. Alex looked at her hand for a moment, understanding exactly what she was asking for. Not romance, not a return to what they used to have, but simply human connection. The basic comfort that comes from not being alone when everything feels impossible. He reached out and took her hand in his. Her skin was cold, and he could feel her pulse beating fast in her wrist. She squeezed his fingers gently, like she was saying thank you without words. Holding Rachel's hand felt like holding something precious and fragile that might break if he wasn't careful enough. Alex could feel the responsibility of this moment settling on his shoulders like a heavy blanket. She had chosen to come to him when she was at her lowest point, and that choice meant something important. His mind started racing with memories of their relationship. Not the romantic parts or the fights they used to have, but the quiet moments when one of them needed the other to just be there. Like the time he got food poisoning and she stayed up all night bringing him water and making sure he was okay, even though she had an important meeting the next morning. Or when her best friend moved across the country and Rachel cried for 3 days straight, while Alex just held her and let her be sad. They had been good at taking care of each other. Maybe too good in some ways. They had gotten so used to being each other's main source of support that they forgot how to be complete people on their own. When things started falling apart between them, they didn't know how to fix their problems without losing themselves in the process. But tonight wasn't about their old relationship or the mistakes they had made. Tonight was about the fact that Rachel was clearly going through something terrible, and she trusted him enough to show up at his door when she needed help. Alex studied her face in the dim light from the kitchen. She looked exhausted in a way that went beyond just being tired. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her skin had a grayish tone that worried him. Her hair, which had always been shiny and well taken care of, looked dull and unwashed. These weren't the signs of someone having a bad week. These were the signs of someone whose world had been turned upside down. He started thinking about what could have happened to bring her to this point. Rachel had always been strong and independent, sometimes to a fault. She would rather solve problems by herself than ask for help, even when she was clearly struggling. For her to show up here, at his apartment, in the middle of the night without calling first, meant that whatever she was dealing with was bigger than anything she could handle alone. Maybe she had lost her job. She had always worried about money, even when things were going well. Or maybe someone in her family was sick. She was close to her mother and her younger brother, and Alex knew that if something happened to either of them, it would destroy her. But as he looked at her more closely, he started to wonder if the problem was more personal. She was too thin, too tired, too fragile. The Rachel he remembered had been full of energy and plans for the future. This version of her looked like someone who was just trying to get through each day. His chest tightened as a worse possibility occurred to him. What if she was sick? What if she had gotten some kind of diagnosis that changed everything, and she didn't have anyone else to help her process it? The thought made his hands shake slightly, and he hoped she couldn't feel it through their connected fingers. Rachel shifted on the couch, tucking her feet under her body and leaning slightly in his direction. Not enough to be touching him, but close enough that he could smell her shampoo. It was different from what she used to use, something simpler and cheaper. Another small sign that her life had changed in ways he didn't understand yet. Alex realized that his own life had changed too, in ways that made this moment both easier and harder than it would have been 2 years ago. He had learned how to be alone, how to take care of himself, how to be happy without needing someone else to complete him. But he had also learned that some connections between people never really go away, even when the romantic part is over. Sitting here with Rachel, holding her hand while she struggled with something he couldn't see or understand, Alex felt the weight of being chosen as someone's safe place. It was an honor and a responsibility that scared him. What if he couldn't give her what she needed? What if he said the wrong thing or made things worse somehow? But then he looked at her face again and saw the way her shoulders had relaxed just slightly since he had taken her hand. She wasn't asking him to fix whatever was wrong. She was just asking him to be present, to be a steady point in whatever storm she was fighting. And that at least was something he knew how to do. As the hours passed, Alex and Rachel found themselves settling into a quiet rhythm that felt both strange and familiar. She had moved closer to him on the couch, not quite touching, but near enough that he could feel the warmth from her body. Her breathing had become steadier, though he could still sense the tension in her shoulders. Around 1 in the morning, Rachel finally spoke for the first time since entering his apartment. Her voice was hoarse, like she hadn't used it much lately. "My mom," she whispered so quietly that Alex had to lean forward to hear her. "She's gone." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and final. Alex felt his heart drop into his stomach. Rachel's mother had been like a second mom to him during their relationship. Mrs. Chen had welcomed him into their family with open arms, teaching him to make her famous dumplings and always asking about his work with genuine interest. Alex squeezed Rachel's hand gently, not knowing what else to do. He wanted to ask when it happened, how, if Rachel was okay, but he could see from her face that talking about details would be too much right now. Instead, he just stayed quiet and let her know through his presence that she wasn't alone. 3 weeks ago, Rachel continued after a few minutes. Heart attack. She was at work, and then she just wasn't. Tears started falling down her cheeks, but she didn't make any sound. Alex remembered that about her. How she cried silently even when she was completely broken inside. It used to worry him because he never knew how much pain she was really in. "I don't know how to do this without her," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "She was the one I called when anything happened. Good news, bad news, when I couldn't decide what to have for dinner. I keep picking up my phone to call her and then remembering." Alex understood now why she looked so thin and tired. Grief had a way of making people forget to take care of themselves. He had seen it happen to his own father after his grandmother died. For months, his dad would forget to eat meals or would fall asleep in his chair instead of going to bed properly. "The funeral was last week," Rachel went on. "Everyone kept asking if I was okay, if I needed anything. But I didn't know how to explain that what I needed was impossible. I needed her to come back and tell me how to live without her." She turned to look at Alex then, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "I tried to stay strong for everyone else. My brother, my dad, all her friends. But tonight I just couldn't anymore. I couldn't pretend I was handling it well when I felt like I was drowning." Alex felt a lump forming in his throat. He had loved Mrs. Chen too, and learning that she was gone felt like losing a piece of his own past. But more than that, he hurt for Rachel and the overwhelming pain she was carrying. "I know we're not together anymore," Rachel said, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "I know I don't have the right to just show up here like this, but you were the only person I could think of who would understand what she meant to me. You knew her. You loved her too. You always have the right to come here," Alex said softly. It was the first time he had spoken since she arrived, and his own voice sounded rough with emotion. "Always. No matter what happened between us, no matter how much time passes. If you need help, you come here." Rachel started crying harder then, but it seemed like relief as much as sadness. Like she had been holding her breath for weeks and could finally let it out. Alex moved closer to her on the couch and opened his arms. She fell into them immediately, pressing her face against his shoulder and letting herself sob properly for the first time since her mother died. He held her tightly, one hand rubbing slow circles on her back, the other stroking her hair. They stayed like that for a long time. Alex didn't try to say anything to make her feel better, or tell her that everything would be okay. He just held her while she cried and let her grief take up all the space it needed. Eventually, Rachel's sobs turned into quiet sniffles, and then into the deep, shaky breathing that comes after a good cry. Alex could feel her body relaxing against him as the weight she had been carrying finally had somewhere to go. "I'm so tired," she whispered against his shoulder. "Then sleep," he said simply. "I'll stay right here." Rachel pulled back to look at him, her face puffy and tear-streaked but somehow more like herself than she had looked all night. "Are you sure? I know this is weird and complicated." "It's not weird," Alex said, and he meant it. "It's just two people who care about each other helping each other through something hard. That's what people do." She nodded and settled back against him, curling up with her head on his shoulder. Within minutes, her breathing had evened out into the rhythm of sleep. Alex stayed awake much longer, thinking about Mrs. Chen and how much he was going to miss her laugh, thinking about Rachel and everything she was going through, thinking about how strange and precious it was to be trusted with someone's deepest pain. Sunlight was streaming through Alex's kitchen window when he woke up, still on the couch with Rachel curled up against him. His neck was stiff from sleeping sitting up, but he didn't want to move and risk waking her. She looked peaceful for the first time since she had arrived, her face relaxed and younger looking in the morning light. Alex checked the clock on his phone carefully. trying not to shift too much. It was almost 9 in the morning, which meant they had slept for about 6 hours. He had a meeting at work in 2 hours, but looking down at Rachel's sleeping face, he knew he wasn't going anywhere until she woke up and they figured out what came next. Around 9:30, Rachel stirred and slowly opened her eyes. For a moment, she looked confused about where she was, but then her expression cleared and she sat up quickly. "Oh, God," she said, running her hands through her messy hair. "I can't believe I fell asleep on you like that. Your neck must be killing you." "It's fine," Alex said, rolling his shoulders to work out the kinks. "How do you feel?" Rachel was quiet for a moment, taking inventory of herself. "Better," she said, sounding a little surprised. "Still sad, but better. Like I can breathe again." She looked around the apartment, seeing it properly in daylight for the first time. "I should go," she said, but she didn't make any move to get up. "I should let you get on with your day. I'm sure you have work and things to do." "I can call in sick," Alex said without hesitation, "if you need to talk more or if you just don't want to be alone yet." Rachel's eyes filled with tears again, but these were different tears. Grateful ones. "You don't have to do that. You've already done so much." "I want to," Alex said simply. "Besides, I think I need to process this too. Your mom was important to me as well." They spent the morning talking about Mrs. Chen. Rachel shared stories from the past few years that Alex had missed, and he told her about memories he had of her mother that Rachel had never heard before. They laughed and cried and slowly began the work of saying goodbye to someone who had meant the world to both of them. Around noon, Rachel finally got up to use the bathroom and splash water on her face. When she came back, she was wearing her sweater again and had combed her hair with her fingers. "I should really go home now," she said. "I need to shower and eat something real and start figuring out how to get back to normal life, whatever that looks like now." Alex nodded, understanding that she needed to start taking care of herself again. "What about work? Are you taking time off?" "I quit my job 2 weeks ago," Rachel said matter-of-factly. "I wasn't handling anything well and I was making mistakes. My boss was understanding, but I knew I couldn't keep going like that. I have enough saved up to get by for a few months while I figure things out." "That's probably smart," Alex said. "Give yourself time to heal." Rachel walked over to where she had left her coat and boots the night before. As she put them on, Alex watched her transform back into the version of herself that faced the world. Stronger, more composed, but he could still see the vulnerability underneath. "Thank you," she said when she was ready to leave. "For last night, for this morning, for letting me fall apart without making me feel ashamed about it." "You don't need to thank me," Alex said. "I meant what I said. You can always come here if you need to." Rachel smiled, and this time it was a real smile with genuine warmth in it. "I know, and maybe in a few weeks, when I'm feeling more like myself, we could have coffee sometime. Not as anything romantic, just as friends who care about each other." "I'd like that," Alex said, and he realized he really would. Rachel hugged him goodbye, a proper hug this time instead of the desperate clinging from the night before. When she pulled away, she looked him in the eyes. "You're a good person, Alex," she said. "I hope you know that." After she left, Alex stood in his quiet apartment for a long time, thinking about the past 12 hours and how they had changed something inside him. He had learned that he was capable of loving someone without needing to possess them, of providing comfort without expecting anything in return. 3 months later, Alex got a text message with a photo attached. It showed Rachel standing in front of a small storefront with a grand opening banner stretched across the window. She looked healthy and happy, her eyes bright with excitement and purpose. The text simply said, "Mom always said I should open my own bakery. Wish me luck." Alex smiled and typed back, "She would be so proud of you. I am too." Some connections, he realized, are stronger than romantic love or friendship or any other category people try to put them in. Some connections are just about two souls recognizing each other and saying, "I see you. I understand you and I'll be here when you need me." And sometimes, that's the most beautiful kind of love there is.